Beauty standards suck, but this movie doesn't. Alexa, play Beyonce. Pretty Hurts. Hello beautiful people, I am Nikki. This is a night of horror where I talk horror movies and sometimes other genres and TV shows. In this video, I will be talking the new movie, The Substance, about a fading celebrity who takes a black market drug that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. Body horror, Demi Moore. I was signed up from the beginning. I love this movie so much. I was completely blown away. But let's talk about why I find this to be a 4-star movie and not a 5-star movie. So the movie starts with Demi Moore, who plays a aging actress, Elizabeth Sparkle, and Dennis Quaid, which I was very surprised to see him in this movie. This is why I love not watching trailers before I watch movies. I love everything just being a surprise. I don't know if he was in the trailers, child, but it was such a fun surprise to see Dennis Quaid and see him in a role that I'm not used to seeing him in. Very talented actor, has played in a lot of things I enjoy, but he's not necessarily like one of my favorites. But I thought he did incredible in this role, and I love seeing actors do things that they don't normally do. Now, of course, we have this aging actress. Dennis Quaid is like the head of this network, and one thing I liked was the ambiguity in the time period of the movie, because Elizabeth Sparkle has this workout show that, I mean, I guess it could be a, you know, we have the workout stuff on like YouTube, but it felt like a very 80s TV broadcast workout. But Dennis Quaid is in the restroom, not washing his hands, might I add, before he walks out. And people get such an attitude because I don't shake hands. Prime example of why I don't. But Dennis Quaid goes into the restroom at the studio. Unbeknownst to him, Demi Moore is in one of the stalls, and he's on the phone talking about how old Demi Moore is now and finding someone new to replace her. And this is when things really start to hit for Elizabeth. I won't call her Demi Moore. As she is leaving, she's driving in her car, and the decision has been made to replace her, and she sees them ripping down her billboard, and she's so distracted by this she crashes. And this crash is pretty much the catalyst for the events in the movie, because when she goes to the hospital to get checked out, a nurse ends up checking her spine and saying, "You're a great candidate." And this is how she gets introduced to The Substance. Now, as I was watching the movie, I thought it was really interesting that they would use Demi Moore for this role, because she might be 60 or whatever, but she is drop dead freaking gorgeous. There are moments in this movie where we have to see Demi Moore naked, and I'm just like, and of course once we get to the younger, better version, we see her naked as well. And obviously things are different, breasts are more perky, but I'm like, baby, I would be perfectly happy in Demi Moore body. Like, not like, she is gorgeous, her body looks great. So at first I felt like she wasn't the right pick for the role, just physically. I felt like we should have had someone maybe a little more overweight, some love handles, some wrinkles, like, I don't know, add in all of that stuff that scares people about getting old. The fact that Demi Moore, Elizabeth Sparkle, is so gorgeous, as the movie progressed, I felt like that was the point. Like, I felt like the point was that this is what beauty standards do to people, and all of this extra stuff that we do to attain a certain standard when there was nothing wrong to begin with. Because there was absolutely nothing wrong with Elizabeth before she went to take the substance. And speaking of the ambiguity of the time period, I mean, we have a newspaper, but we have, you know, modern cell phones. And when they go to replace Elizabeth Sparkle for her show, there's an ad for a talent search in a newspaper. And I'm like, do we do that in this day and age? First of all, do newspapers even exist? I have no idea. But I would think you would put the talent search out on the internet. But I love that. I love that we can't, not that we can't pin down the time period, but that we have all of these different mixes from different time periods, modern things and then things that are from a period before, like maybe, like I said, the newspaper, the vacuum cleaner. And I feel like it was a great point to me that this horror transcends a time period. Now, Demi Moore goes to get her substance. She calls a number. They don't just deliver it. She has to go to this certain place and pick it up. And it's so much in this movie that I feel like represents so much and is such great symbolism. For one, where she has to go, she goes to this like building. It looks decrepit. It's just this alley and the door won't open all the way, this like garage door type of thing. So she has to crawl in this nasty place to get to the substance, but the place she's actually in that holds all these little lockers for them, that all looks different than how bad it looks on the outside. So she gets home, she has the whole package. The activator, the thing that really took me out is I was very surprised how Elizabeth just injects herself with no real questions, no customer reviews, no product reviews, no questions in general. And I just felt like I'm not putting anything green in my body. It's something about green that I just feel like is a no-go. I don't know if I just grew up watching too much horror, but green is never good. But it was very surprising to me, like how old, you know how we look at like how old is a technology? How long have you guys been doing this procedure? I just felt like it was so insane that she really wasn't asking any real questions. But it's because the only thing pertinent to her was getting the results that they promised her to have this younger, better version of herself. Now, when she first injects herself and the whole process starts, she's in this bathroom, and we have to get into the aesthetics of this movie. Every location, the cinematography, everything. It just felt like, I always say on this channel, I love a movie where it feels like the filmmakers had a great, pristine eye for details. And that is exactly what the substance feels like. It's like everything was just amazing. Can I get that apartment, please? The Elizabeth Sparkle apartment was amazing. When Elizabeth starts this whole process, gets this injection, first of all, what really took me back was the way she hit the ground, the way she fell on the floor in the bathroom. I feel like she should have knocked a few teeth out the way she fell. But I absolutely love the body horror in this bathroom scene. And I thought this was such a great and creative idea for this birthing scene, because Elizabeth births the younger, better version of herself, which is Sue, out of her back. Oh my God. Talk about like the 8-year-old horror gore kid fan in me would have lived for this, okay? And what I loved, so in this bathroom scene, after Sue is birthed, she goes back over to the body of Elizabeth, and they both are not conscious at the same time. Right now, it is Sue's chance, and Elizabeth is laying down, and there's instructions. There's a whole IV she has to hook up, and this little packet to feed the self that's laying on the ground. And she literally stitches up the Elizabeth body. When I tell you, the movie progresses and continues to just top itself and top itself and top itself with the body horror, and I loved it so freaking much. But something that kept taking me out is whenever it was Elizabeth's turn or Sue's turn, we would just leave the old body or the young version body laying on the bathroom floor. I'm like, baby, we gonna wake up with a crick in our neck. Like, you can't cover, and they were just naked on the floor. I have to add that. You can't cover the body with a blanket. You can't put a pillow over under their head. And I know Sue is like a young, skinny, small little girl, but you can't at least drag the body somewhere. I just thought, but again, I feel like this represented something as well. The fact that we didn't really take care of the other body. We just left it on that bathroom floor. And then eventually, which I thought was crazy, Sue turns into a demolition man. She turns into a, what is that? What are they called? A carpenter? I don't even know if they're called a carpenter, but that's the word that's popping in my head. But she literally turns into like a construction master and goes and puts a hole in the wall in the bathroom and creates this whole little room, which I felt like this is an apartment, right? Where was this extra space behind the wall? Where did that come from to make a whole room? But whatever the hell. Somehow she got the building plans and we just had a whole room. But I just was, and there's a whole door she builds. And I'm just like, how are you a master carpenter, young girl? But anyway, so one catalyst that gets us to moving forward in some big key moments in the plot is they are supposed to switch every 7 days without exception. We end up having Sue, the young version, taking more and more time. For one, when we first see it, she wants to go out and party. There's like a little bit of the sustenance left in a pouch for Elizabeth's body. And Sue is going over her time. She brings home a guy. And I was halfway thinking, you have 7 whole days. You couldn't party and bring home this guy before the 7th day, like before you got to the end. But she starts getting sick. She starts to get a nosebleed. And we have this whole part of the substance process where Sue has to take, I want to call it spinal fluid from Elizabeth's back. Y'all, the body, everything that is just happening with bodies in this movie just matches my freak. It serves me so well. The needles, like everything, having to take the spinal fluid, having to stitch up. And I love when they're stitching and you can just see the needle going in the flesh. Like, I don't know, body horror is one of my top favorite horror subgenres. But she ends up going in, getting what she needs to get herself together, and going on back to her man. So once Elizabeth is finally able to wake up and get her turn, right now we get such a progression. Like I said, the movie just continues to top itself, but we get such a progression in Elizabeth and what becomes her transformation after Sue takes this extra time. When Elizabeth wakes up, one of her fingers looks like a old, dead, corpsey finger. And we have this situation in the movie where we keep calling the helpline with the substance. Elizabeth goes to tell him there was a slight misuse of the substance, a few extra hours were used, it caused alteration. Hey, what's the procedure to reverse this? And this gives us a glimpse into what could possibly become of certain ramifications, because if her finger turns like that because of a few extra hours, at this point in the film you're thinking, okay, what could possibly happen with more than just a few extra hours? But whatever you were thinking, you weren't prepared for what happened. What the guy on the helpline ends up telling her, what has been used on one side is lost on the other side. There is no going back. There is no she and you. You are one. Respect the balance and you won't have any more inconveniences. And I absolutely love the whole dynamic with the phone calls that Elizabeth would have on this helpline and everything that would be said to her. First of all, the movie is just great writing from top to bottom. Now, at the top of the movie, Elizabeth runs into an old classmate who is this guy, Fred, thinks she's still gorgeous, hasn't changed, they went to school together, and he gives her his phone number, drops the piece of paper he wrote the number on into like a nasty ringworm infested puddle and goes to hand it to her. Baby, I'm not touching that. But she never hits him up, and then now all of a sudden she goes to call Fred, and we see her getting ready for the date, right? And once she's ready, she goes to walk out. She has this gorgeous window, this gorgeous floor-to-ceiling windows with this view that looks right onto Sue's billboard. And that stops her in her tracks. And she goes, and we have this moment where we see the time on the clock, and she keeps doing more and more and changing her appearance and putting on makeup and changing her outfit. And she's starting to really pick at herself. and obsessing over her looks versus the young self looks, and she ends up standing Fred up. I thought this was so freaking relevant. This moment, I feel like men and women can relate to this. That nervousness of getting ready to present yourself to someone, to go on this date, and being so wound up, worried, critical. When she ends up standing up Fred, this is the catalyst to her more and more, not the physical decline, but the mental decline of Elizabeth. Now, one aspect of the film I was confused with is the whole Sue versus Elizabeth, the consciousness of them, because initially, in like the first moments of Elizabeth birthing young Sue, Sue is looking in the mirror when she's first born. I thought this was a situation where Elizabeth was actually in the body of Sue. Like Elizabeth at her age, it was all her. She was just in a different body. But I got very confused or couldn't really pin down as the movie progressed the whole situation of the consciousness between both of them. Sue is filming for the show, and all of a sudden something like pops under the skin, and she takes a moment to go into her dressing room. And like I said, Elizabeth is having this mental decline. She doesn't even care about her appearance anymore. She's like just gorging on food, and Sue ends up pulling a chicken wing out of her flesh. And honestly, this threw me off a bit because it seemed like this was the only moment where an action of Elizabeth reflected on Sue physically. There was a lot that each person would do, but this was the only moment where it reflected on another one, so I was a little thrown off by that. Elizabeth is eating a ton of food, but it's only this one moment where the chicken wing comes out of Sue. Now, we end up getting more and more reveals of Elizabeth. She is looking horrid. Sue is taking more and more time, and it is draining the life out of Elizabeth, draining the youth out of Elizabeth. She calls the helpline, and she's complaining, and he tells her, would you like to stop and go back to being just yourself? Now, what has been transferred cannot be reversed, but you can't stop now. Now, one thing that ends up coming up is Sue has a chance to do this big New Year's Eve show. We time jump 3 months. Remember, they're supposed to switch every 7 days. Sue goes to try to suck more of the fluid out, spinal fluid out. There is nothing left, no more. I think it's the stabilizer fluid. So Sue now calls the helpline, and he goes to tell her, you have reached the end. You have to let more fluid regenerate. You have to switch. When I tell y'all, the one thing that really took me out of this movie, and it's a lot, but the one thing that I was like, Sue has her boyfriend. He's in bed. He hears this noise going on. Elizabeth wakes up because, of course, Sue was just given information. She has to let that spinal fluid regenerate. The reveal of Elizabeth. This is why I said when Sue takes a few hours and it transforms that one finger of Elizabeth, you can already kind of know, okay, if she takes more than just a few hours, what the hell could happen? Nothing could prepare you for the actual reveal of what was about to happen. The actual reveal of Elizabeth, she looked like a literal monster. The reveal was insanity. The boyfriend hears a noise. He's outside the bathroom. Before he can come in, Elizabeth slams the door closed, and she sounds like a monster, like telling him to get out of there. The way the boyfriend ran out of the apartment damn near naked, I'm like, you gonna leave your girlfriend? You hear some kind of monster? How do you know Sue didn't need help or wasn't being attacked? Like, him running out of there took me out because I felt like the boyfriend did what every black person says they would do in a horror movie situation, which is get the hell out of Dodge. See, like, he got the hell out of there. Yo, I can't remember his name, but shout out to him because that was the triple double OG. He said F all this and he got out of there. Now, this is when Elizabeth calls the helpline, and she has finally had enough. She is a mix between like not just old, because old ain't the word, like decrepitly old, monstrously old, like corpse looking. And she calls the helpline and she says, I want to stop, like, period, let's stop. And she puts on clothes and tries to cover herself up. So she pretty much, when she goes out into the world to go pick up the termination package, termination injection, she looks kind of like just an elderly person with like a hunchback, because she has the hood over and she's very covered up. And she goes to inject Sue to terminate everything. And in this moment, she sees a card with some flowers for Sue that says, they're going to love you. Because, you know, she has the whole New Year's Eve thing coming. And this is a moment where Elizabeth suddenly rejects the termination shot. And she injects herself with the IV, connects the IV line between her and Sue, and brings Sue back to life. And that moment was so pivotal, because one of the themes for me in this movie is the validation received from the exterior and how you look and the fame. And it was so crazy to me, and such a pivotal moment in Elizabeth and her character and her mind, even now, even with how she has messed up how she looks and her body, to look at that card and see they're going to love you and immediately be like, you know what? No, I need the younger, better version of myself. Even with all of these consequences that I've gotten, I still need her. I thought that was crazy, amazing. Such a pivotal moment when it comes to Elizabeth. Now, when Sue wakes up, this is the first face-to-face, both conscious moment of Sue and Elizabeth. Sue looks and she sees the termination injection and immediately goes to attack Elizabeth. This Sue versus Elizabeth fight was crazy, but it also helped me in my interpretation of the Sue versus Elizabeth, the consciousness of them, because remember I was saying how at the very top, like the first little moments of Sue being birthed, I thought it was like, remember that Bruce Willis movie Surrogates, where you sit in a chair and your mind is in the surrogate, so you are literally experiencing and making the decisions. That's you. That's how I thought it was with Elizabeth and Sue. I thought it was actual Elizabeth inside of a younger, better version body. But the Sue versus Elizabeth battle, and how they would both wake up from their unconsciousness and be surprised at what the other did, it felt very much to me, and we are told throughout the movie, you are one, there is no she. I feel like what this represents to me, the Sue versus Elizabeth, is like your drunk self versus your sober self, and how you can do things in your intoxicated state and be surprised at your own actions in your sober state. Like, it's all you. There is no other person, but you're still surprised and taken aback, and like it's unknown to you what you did in those states. And I also took this Sue versus Elizabeth as how our aesthetic, our body image can literally change our personality to the point we're unrecognizable to ourselves. It kind of reminds me, have y'all ever known like those people who like were always overweight, right? And then maybe in like their 20s, they either have surgery, exercise, whatever the hell, maybe they get some height, whatever the hell. They were always like an overweight person, and then now they're a small, skinny, slim person, and their whole personality changed. They become like a mean girl, or if they're a guy, they become like a jerk. What's the equivalent of mean girl when it comes to men? But that's what this represented to me with the Sue versus Elizabeth. Now, I will say, I don't quite understand the real benefit for Elizabeth Sparkle if she isn't able to experience what Sue is experiencing. Like, I get it's the younger, better version of yourself, but you're not actually living out this life. So I am a little unclear on the benefits for her. But this Elizabeth versus Sue fight was so freaking insane to me, because how the hell was Sue like drop kicking Elizabeth, like Jackie Chan jumping in the air, drop kicking Elizabeth. She was strong as this little toothpick skinny ass girl kicks the bathroom door down. It felt like Sue had freaking superhuman strength, but I love how over the top this was. And the visual of Sue like smashing Elizabeth's head into the mirror, I was sitting here like, how you gonna kill your older self? Don't you need that person? Don't you need that body? Baby, don't you need that spinal fluid? And I was kind of annoyed. They have a moment where they flash across the screen like, remember you are one. And I'm like, baby, the audience ain't forgot. Sue forgot. Y'all don't need to tell us. Now, Sue ends up going to the New Year's Eve event. She's dressed up in this gown and she has her makeup done, hair done and everything. Baby coughs up a tooth. And then Sue proceeds to pull 3 teeth out one by one. When I tell you, when it comes to anything with the body and horror, you get every freaking thing in this one movie. She has missing teeth and is still trying to go on the stage. And I absolutely love the moment. We haven't gotten into the men of the substance yet, but I absolutely love the moment when Sue runs into Dennis Quaid and all of the shareholders, who are all, of course, old, elderly white men. And they want her to smile. And Dennis Quaid is like, pretty girls should always smile. And I think it's pretty universal that women absolutely hate men telling you to smile. It is so strange to me that literal strangers, like I don't know you from a can of paint, will just randomly tell me to smile. Like, nigga, I don't know you. And I just love this movie. Just really, I just bow down to the filmmaker of this movie. She is incredible. I love her. She literally just put the entire female experience, she even put birth in here, like the strangest birth. But that moment where I read so much into this, and I really hope that men aren't just immediately turned off by this movie because there are no good men in the movie. I hope they really sit with this movie. First of all, I think everything with the fame and beauty standards, I think is relevant to men and women. But this moment, I get so much out of this pretty girl should always smile moment. But one thing I want to say and will take away from this scene is the fact that Sue pulls her fingernails off. Her ear is falling off after this interaction. Her teeth has fallen out. Like, you're randomly going up to her, telling her she should smile, pretty girl should always smile, with no inclination, no idea of what she's actually struggling with and going through. It's just like, who are you to put an expectation on someone else that they have to smile? Or it's just so much in this. Okay, I would go way too long if I really broke down what this scene like represents to me. But Sue ends up running out back to her apartment. I don't know the damn distance between the event venue and the apartment, but she runs to the apartment and the activator is still in the bathroom, and it clearly has instructions that says single use, discard after use. But she injects herself. She is so desperate she is going to use an expired medication. We get another birthing scene. Sue's back rips open and she births the monstrous Sue, Elizabeth hybrid, because Demi Moore, Elizabeth Sparkle's face is like on the back of this thing. Like this monstrous Sue that, when I tell you, the movie just keeps topping itself. Now, monstrous Sue puts on the New Year's Eve gown, literally stabs earrings into like the size of his head because it really has like no ears, curls the one little string of hair it has, glues, well not glues, but like puts a picture of Elizabeth Sparkle's face from like a magazine on its face, draws on a smile with the lipstick. We get to the venue. Dennis Quaid and all the old white men are salivating in the audience. We have women. One thing that, oh my God, it's so much to dissect in this movie, and I can't even get into all of it because this will be a 2-hour video. But one thing that really took me out was at the event, women are on stage dancing, titties out, ass out, everything. The mom is in the audience with her child. The monstrous Sue comes on stage, and it was hilarious that all them women with their titties out was trying to keep smiling. And I swear, it's so much to read, it's everything. But they were just smiling while the monstrous Sue was right there trying to just keep their composure. The paper falls off the monstrous Sue's face. The lady is in the audience with her child and covers the child's eyes as the monster is like pushing out a whole titty and it falls on the floor. So you was fine with your child watching the women on stage dancing and titties flipping around with their asses out. But when the monstrous Sue is on stage, that's when you cover your child's eyes. Like, y'all, it's just chef's kiss to this movie. There's just so much in this movie. And this third act is going down in history. It's going down in it's going down in history. Chef's kiss. I love a movie that just gets absurd and over the top and just balls to the wall, as they say. I feel like I've never said that expression in my life, but it fits here. One by one, the women in the audience start to scream. We hear people, men in the background, like in the audience, it's a monster, shoot the monster. And Monstrous Sue is on the mic like, it's still me, I'm Sue. They're pushing her, you monster, you freak. And she's trying to say, it's me. And a man hits her in the head, and her head explodes. A new head pops up, and like something happens where like the arm ends up chopped off or something, and blood sprays all over everyone and everything. And for me, this really represented the monster that they all created, the monster that this societal beauty standard has created. And Monstrous Sue ends up running outside, falls on the ground, the entire body breaks, shatters like porcelain, where we're only left with this like Elizabeth Shaw face glob, and it crawls over to her star on the Walk of Fame that we opened the movie with. The face melts into like this bloody goo on that star. A street sweeper cleans it up, and she looks up at the sky. Y'all, I have so many words when it comes to this movie, and I just can't even get into all of it. But I love the ending, and it just really felt like, even watching the star from when it's created to how it kind of goes over time, I felt like ultimately with this movie, Elizabeth was just fighting the inevitable. Everyone ages, everyone dies. Sue versus Elizabeth just fighting herself, fighting the inevitable. The third act is my absolute favorite part of the whole movie. I was blown away. I love how unexpected and unpredictable the third act was, where you can kind of see where the story may go. Like I said, when Sue takes a few hours and that happens to the fingers, you can kind of put together, oh, if she takes more hours, what'll happen, or kind of know like how this may end. But there is no way to predict that batshit insane third act, and I love that. I love how predictable it was and unpredictable it was. Sorry, I feel like I can enjoy a movie that's predictable. I absolutely loved Oddity, but I found that story to be very predictable. But the way that third act, all the monstrous reveals of how Elizabeth was changing, just how all of that ended up coming to play, amazing. While I don't personally relate to the whole getting older equals irrelevant and undesirable, I mean, I'm damn near 40, but might as well say I'm 40. I just feel like I have always just sorry to my mama trying to raise me, but I've just always just been born with a naturally rebellious type of spirit in mind. And ever since I was young, I just really rebelled against like beauty standards. I spent the bulk of my life just walking around looking like a little boy. Like, and to this day, I just feel like I'm not working that hard for male validation. Like, I'm not working that hard. That's just me. I do not believe in the whole like your prime is your 20s and all. But I feel like the message and point of this movie is extremely, extremely, extremely relevant, and is so well presented. And I feel like great points were made. And with Elizabeth, I thought it was, instead of being present in the age and in the body that she was in, she was craving this younger self, even to the detriment of herself. Like, she made her appearance worse, chasing having this younger, better self. And let's get into the men of the substance a bit. I absolutely love that we didn't put in some good guy amongst the crew of the men in the substance. And even when you look at Fred, who appears to be the nice guy, I don't take him as the nice guy or good guy. The very first comment Fred makes to Elizabeth is about her looks. And that is why she reaches out to him when she finally does, because she's thinking of how he validated her physical appearance. And I feel like this rings so true in real life. I feel like there are some women who will go out with the man, accept the male attention, not that they necessarily like the guy or are attracted to him, but because he validates their need to feel desirable. He validates something for Elizabeth. I also cannot finish this video without talking about how masterful the sound design is. When the movie started, I was like, I hate this movie. There is nothing I hate more in this world. My biggest pet peeve in life, I will never understand how people watch those like mukbang things. I hate watching people eat. Oh my God, I hate seeing food enter people's mouths. I hate hearing people eat. I could watch all the horror and blood and guts, but I do not want to hear people eating, and I do not want to see food going into people's mouths. It literally makes me want to rip my skin off. I can't stand it. And to have that whole Dennis Quaid like eating, oh God, I was like, yeah, this movie making me sick. They achieved their goal. The movie literally makes you uncomfortable. It makes you disgusted, and that's the point. And the men of the substance, the absurdity, the over the top of the neighbor of Dennis Quaid character, I feel like it is very on brand. And I feel like if you don't have certain experiences, it may feel just over the top and cartoonish, but I swear to God, I promise you, men in the world operate this over the top. One thing I loved was how the Dennis Quaid was shot. How he was shot so close to the camera, because in real life there are men who will literally invade your space and talk that close to you. Everything, that's why I said it was such an attention to detail, and everything really meant something. And the absurdity of Dennis Quaid and the other shareholders at their ages criticizing Elizabeth Shaw's age and all of that stuff, like Dennis Quaid and all those men being obsessed with youth and beauty, even though they have neither. That is the absurdity of real life. Like hit my mic. The men who are like 50 but don't want to date a woman who's 50 or 40 or 30. They only want to, like, the absurdities. And one thing I will say when it comes to the men of the substance, I personally do not find any characters in the substance to be good or bad. Not the men, not the female characters. I find them to all be products of society, products of the beauty standard and beauty hierarchy that we are born into. Sue got high off the validation. Elizabeth missed the validation. Elizabeth was literally destroyed trying to chase beauty. Youth and beauty. Sue is destroyed trying to maintain youth and beauty. I don't think, and that's why I'm like, I just feel like I really hope, because I've stayed away from any reviews or anything, but I really hope that men aren't just trashing this movie because of how the men of the substance are presented. I think there is some very important things here for everyone. There's something here for everyone to relate to. And I feel like if you are one of those men telling women to smile, or the absurdity of these characters, it can, like, take a look at how you operate within the world and operate with women and the standards and the women that are the Elizabeth or the Sues. I feel like there's something here for everyone, and I absolutely do not feel like any of the characters, male or female, in the substance are quote unquote good or quote unquote bad. It is all just a societal pressure, a societal way of life that we have all been indoctrinated into. I just absolutely love the feeling it invokes. The to shoot Dennis Quaid so close to the camera lens. Like, oh, it's just so true though. I love how intense the movie feels. I love how over the top it is. I did give The Substance 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. I really am so excited to rewatch this and see if maybe it'll become a 5-star. I doubt it though. I absolutely love this movie. I think it is fucking brilliant. Fucking brilliant. Oh my God. But I do feel like my attention and being engrossed and engaged waned a bit when Sue is birthed and we're going through her workout classes and all of that. I get the point, but watching Sue's hip hop, like, music video workout, I wasn't engrossed. I wasn't engaged. I absolutely get the point, but just for me personally, I was more engaged when we started following Elizabeth at the beginning. Then when it turns to Sue and we're going through all of her stuff, even when she goes to party and it's the nightclub and she brings home the guy, I just wasn't as engrossed. That's just me personally. So that's why for me, this is more a 4 than 5-star, because I just feel like, I won't necessarily say the pacing was off. I don't feel like the movie was too long, because I'm not one to complain about a runtime as long as it's utilized and everything has a purpose. And I feel like this did have that. Those moments with Sue was just a little slow for my personal taste. I just wasn't as engaged and engrossed with it. But The Substance is it's groundbreaking in my opinion. And just telling the story of the horror of beauty standards, a woman's worth being tied to her attractiveness. Oh my God. And this monstrous version that is born when Sue goes out into the world as the monstrous Sue. It just felt very much like the yin and yang of how the world treats you based on your looks. I mean, the movie we could get a sequel to touch on, like, fat phobia and all, like, the horror of being a woman, like the horror, like, oh God, this movie is just so brilliant. I can't say that enough. And I wish I could just literally dissect, like, frame by frame every moment of this movie, but that would be like a 6-hour video, and I know y'all not here for that. Tons of the movie show body parts, women's bodies, and it does not feel exploitive. It's an interesting contrast in how different bodies are shown. We have naked Demi Moore, Elizabeth Sue. We have Elizabeth Sparkle. We have naked Sue. We have Sue and all the younger girls doing the workout versus Elizabeth Sparkle and her crew doing the workout videos. And Elizabeth looking at her body is framed where it feels very critical, versus Sue looking at her body, the way it's framed, the way she struts in, like, her shirt and her underwear. I feel like certain things can only be achieved with the woman behind the camera. Like, that's just what it is. A moment that stands out to me is the monstrous Sue splattering blood on everyone, and the blood splattering on, like, the background dancers, and us focusing on, like, this blood splattering on their breasts, on their butt. Monstrous Sue pushing out this breast, like, that what y'all wanted, ain't it? Y'all want the titties and then the titties and then the ass, like, y'all want the T and A. I I just love what all of that represents and just how it's all framed. The way the entire male crew is like looking at Sue and the dancers when they're filming the workout, how it's framed versus Elizabeth and her crew doing the workout, I think it's very intentional, and for me, almost commentary on how younger girls' bodies are sexualized or considered sexually desirable, while older women's bodies, like the Elizabeth Shaw and her group, are deemed not like quite sexualized or sexually desirable. The reality in the movie makes this disturbing. I talk all the time on this channel about the essay revenge subgenre and how I absolutely hate it and how it irks me that anytime filmmakers want to think of something disturbing or horrific against women, they can only go to the hard R word. There's so much disturbing and horror when it comes to women. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. And I absolutely love that this movie explored a lot of that. You want disturbing, you want horror, women, it's here. The substance. This is what I be talking about. Like, this is it. And it's so interesting that the writer and director of this movie, she actually did an essay revenge. One of the few that I really like, called Revenge. I feel like we need women in horror. It is so important behind the cameras, writing the movies, because even when we talk about revenge, the way the essay scene is framed and shot versus the way it's framed and shot when men are writing and behind the camera of these essay revenge things, where I feel like it's so sick. That's why I don't like them. I feel like it comes off tantalizing and erotic. Like, this is essay. Why are you... It always takes me out that the cover of I Spit on Your Grave is so tantalizing and sexualized with the girl clothes ripped and her little ass out. But no. But I'm going up for this lady. I love her, and I just wanted to open a door for a lot more women in horror. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for supporting the content. If you enjoyed everything I had to say on the substance, hit like on this video. Let me know in the comments, how did you feel about the substance? Do you agree or disagree with my take and interpretations? I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.
Goodbye. Goodbye.